Hey folks, Bob Desmond over the Contrarian Trader, and welcome to Market Wrap. What we're going to talk about tonight are the closing numbers for the overall averages. We're going to talk about our earnings after the bell, Meta being the number one, Ford we'll talk about a little bit, but the real action happening over at Meta in the after hours. And before we close out Meta, we're going to talk about, yeah, sure, what's driving the price action in the after hours, but more importantly, as we go into tomorrow's trading session, we're going to talk about where there is historical support. So let's begin with a reminder. Tomorrow night, no market wrap. What we will be doing is Thursday night stock charts live. That's where we review the closing price action or the potential closing price action for the week. We're going to go over the weekly charts. We'll talk about earnings that were released earlier in the day, meaning tomorrow morning, we're going to have Shopify come out, McDonald's, Caterpillar. We're not going to talk about all of these, but the most important ones we will. Merck has been on fire of late. Perhaps we'll touch upon that one. We're going to have Apple, Amazon after the bell tomorrow. And that's about it. That's about it in terms of earnings. Now, what we did today is we did do an earnings trade on, actually we did it yesterday on Microsoft. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And I'll talk to you why we closed out that trade. I could have closed it out for a profit, but there's something called your net liquidity. And your net liquidity is very, very critical. We'll talk about that in a moment. And we'll talk about the whys, why I decided to say, okay, let's scratch this trade. And when I say scratch, I'm taking poetic license. We did take a small loss on it, very small relative. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Net on the day. How was our P&L? It was up. What drove the price action of our positions? Our gold mining stocks, our silver stocks, gold in particular. So we had a very good day, despite the fact that we had two trades go against us. One, obviously, was Microsoft. The other one was Lockheed Martin. It's a very big position for us. I didn't expect it to move so big this morning, so I wasn't prepared to balance out two trades that were really putting pressure on our net liquidity and our P&L. So we've made some adjustments there. So let's get to it. So in the after-hours session, we had Facebook report, Meta report. Now, initially they rallied. So why did Facebook or Meta rally in the after-hours session? Initially, the reason is that you're fighting the algorithms. They saw the word beat under sales or revenue, and they took the shares up higher initially, but their EPS, their earnings per share, really took it on the chin. So we saw a massive reversal. Now we had a closing price of 129.82. I was going to trade this on earnings, but I didn't because of what happened with Microsoft today, and I'm so glad that I didn't trade it. So the anticipated market maker move here was at around $14.50. Obviously, in the after-hours session, we are outside the anticipated market maker move. Now, I would have put my strike at around $90 to $95 on the put side. That's roughly 3 times the anticipated market maker move. That's what we did on Microsoft. And we could have, again, profited on that trade if Lockheed Martin didn't go against us. But in terms of Meta, it looks as though we're probably going to move lower here. Let's see if we have any forward-looking guidance that's been reported. Looks like Facebook earnings, that division, their earnings were cut in half. Meta stock near or down towards the lowest prices in 6 years. Meta Platforms investor run from Q3 earnings, revenue beat, EPS miss. We knew this. Daily users up, cost to climb in 2023. That's a problem on a forward-looking time basis. But you're hearing that out of all of these companies, Meta Platforms, this is a forward-looking basis. Q4 revenue, they're anticipated to be between 30 and 32.5 billion versus analyst consensus of 32.2. So in essence, you need to split the baby here. They cut their forward-looking revenues, aka sales. So that's why you're seeing the shares lower. Now, one thing I want to point out is that when you take a look at their price to earnings, now I'm not sure whether this is on a forward-looking or on a current looking time frame. So we'll check back in here tomorrow. But I'm going to assume that this is not forward looking. We closed out the day with an 11 handle on PE. We'll check back in here. So to be honest with you, it looks like Meta shares are cheap on a relative basis. So especially they're going to be even cheaper tomorrow because don't forget, they beat on EPS. So they're probably going to open up on a PE basis, very, very favorable. So the question is, where to from here? Where do we expect to see some defense on Meta shares? Let's head on over and check with the automated support levels that are drawn for us on TrendSpider. They're one of our sponsors. TrendSpider, 35% discount code below. Cheapest price on the web. If you want to become a member of the Contrarian Trader, I give it away free to our silver and gold level members. And if you're not ready to join the Contrarian Trader, we completely understand. Get to know me first. They have a 7-day free trial offer. Again, link below. Take advantage of it. Okay, so obviously on the day, we saw a bearish reversal bar on this session, on volume. So the question is, where do we find support? And where we'll find support, it looks to be, at least on a weekly time frame, down here at around, we're going to be looking at a 113 to a 112 handle on Facebook. Where are we trading in the after hours session? We're down below that support level on Meta at current. We're down at a 111 spot 34. But don't forget, we saw the PE ratio on Meta. It is pretty cheap on a PE basis. So I think that there's a trade to be had here. I would not go buying the common stock unless, of course, we saw a reversal on the day, meaning we're going to open lower, obviously, tomorrow. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. However, if we manage to rally back, a couple of bids coming in here now. If we manage to rally back and close above, let's call it 114 by the end of the day, there may be a trade to be had. Now, for those that trade options as I do, as long as equities, what we may do is take a look at where we could sell some premium, meaning we may want to sell some naked puts here. So one strategy would be going out perhaps 40 days in that neighborhood. Doesn't have to be exactly 40 days, around 35 days, to December the 2nd, and look to sell premium at the 85 strike. So we'll look to take advantage of the volatility in the morning. And as the shares are getting beaten up, sell premium on deep out of the money put options. And if they're not assigned to us, what do we care? We're just going to collect the premium. Will I sell a call at the same time? Probably not. I'll wait for a counter trend rally to the upside on Meta and then sell a call on that position, creating a strangle on Meta on a counter trend rally. So that's a game plan moving into tomorrow for Meta shares. Again, I'm glad we didn't open up an earnings trade here. So let's talk about the closing price action of the overall markets. And then members, what we're going to do is we're going to segue over and into market wrap. We're going to talk about strategy moving forward. We're going to go over the closing price action of the bond market, the stock market. Why do we talk about the bond market? Because the bond market is the tail that wags the stock market dog. So it's essential that you do that. Always pay attention to what bonds are doing. So let's take a look at the closing price action of the markets. The NASDAQ closed down 2%. The S&Ps. The S&P 500 closed down spot 4.3%. Now, the odd part here is that the VIX closed down as well on the session. The Russell 2000 closed up 1% on the session. The 10-year yield is barely holding on now to a 4 handle. Now, this should be stock market bullish. Remember, going into the new trading day today, the average trader, even the professional trader, was expecting a bloodbath in the markets. Now, I mentioned on Market Wrap to members that, you know what, get ready. The VIX was down. It's looking pretty weak. We had new daily lower lows. I think that we move lower. In fact, we had taken out the lows of the month. So we had a double top on VIX, and we had taken out the prior low. So we have a new trend on VIX, which is to the downside. You saw no different today on the VIX. So I'm not ready quite yet to say the market is done going up. I think that at this point in time, we've come so far, so fast that we need a pullback. And now what the market's got to do, it's got to prove to us that we can put in a higher low and then consolidate and then begin to proceed higher. And if we begin to see that consolidation and that beginning of a move higher, well, we're going to put money to work. But at current, as we go into the new trading day tomorrow, we are biased to the short side. In fact, what we did is, I mentioned earlier that Lockheed Martin, which is down in the after hours session, I'm happy to see, really gave us a big challenge on the day. This is a stock that's trading over $460, and it made a big move. And it really put pressure on our net liquidity. So what is net liquidity? The net liquidity is you don't want to put at any one given time more than 50% of your capital at work. Because what that does is that if you get into a bind, meaning you have to manage a trade like Microsoft and you have another trade, a big trade going against you, all of a sudden your net liquidity is down below 50%. And you got to get worried at that point in time because things can get real fast if you're trading options or if you're on margin, if you don't have enough liquidity to be able to manage your trades, roll them out, or to close them out, reestablish with different strikes. So it's very critical to have enough net liquidity so that you're not beholden to your broker if you're on margin to have to liquidate. That's how you kill your account. So it's critical that we take a few minutes, evaluate our net liquidity, lighten up, and then be able to have maneuverability, which is exactly what we did. And by doing that, what we were able to do was, as we saw Lockheed Martin begin to lighten up into the back half of the day, he said, you know what? Now we're beginning to see topping action. We're beginning to see lower highs. We're beginning to see a fade. This is now the 7th up day. The probability of an 8th, 9th consecutive up day, while not out of the realm of possibility, is improbable. We're probably going to get a pullback, especially if we get a miss on a major name like Facebook. So we could bet that probably tomorrow morning we're going to see some red on the screen. Ideally, we get a pullback on Lockheed Martin. We book our profits, we move to the sidelines, and then we look for new opportunities that are out there. Now, before we go to market wrap, I promised one of our members that we would go over a stock that he was interested in. It was moving up higher, NBR, Neighbors. A real serious move here. This is a weekly chart. Very strong move on the session, on massive volume. Loving the setup here. The only problem I have with Neighbors is that at current, we're trading above the 3rd standard deviation Bollinger Band. I'll save you the jargon if you don't know what that is. We're not supposed to be there. So expect a consolidation sideways and with a bias to the upside on Neighbors in the next day or so. Now, taking a look at a weekly chart, the weekly chart, we had broken out back here, and this is the value of the automated trend lines. Take them off, throw them back on. We broke out here the week of October the 3rd, retested, failed, re-broke out the week of October the 17th. Very strong for that to happen. And then now we have a continuation move higher on Neighbors. This is a very bullish chart. And one thing I really want to drive home here on this chart is that we have a volume bar. Remember, this is a weekly chart. It's only Wednesday, and we have 2 trading days left to go, and we are just shy of the moving average to the upside. Extremely bullish. Our RSI is putting in higher lows. Stokes, higher lows, and now higher highs. Neighbors, bullish. Longer term, short term, I don't like that 3D Bollinger Band. Let's see if we could lighten up here. Trade sideways with a bias to probably to the upside, but at least we trade sideways. Take some of that froth off. That consolidation will allow for another move up higher. Neighbors, bullish. Members, let's head on over. Let's talk about the closing price action of the major average. We're going to talk about our positions and our strategy moving into the back half of the week. If you're not currently a member, take advantage of our 14-day free trial offer. Link below. Okay, members, a obviously rough day in the market with a reversal bar. The fact that Meta had reported after hours with significant downside move tells us that in all probability, we are going to get a move